here with Lisa Arseneau. She's producer for Stabler Insurance, longtime industry veteran. 30 plus years, we're not really sure. But Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to educate our audience on how to prevent a nuclear verdict. Thank you. So we want to give the people just a little taste of what the webinar will be on March 23rd. So just kind of start with nuclear verdicts. They're a buzzword, but it seems like it's for real. Tell us, what's causing the trend?
They're more than a buzzword. They are a thing, unfortunately. And nuclear verdicts are being driven by best practices not being adhered to, lawyers most likely or more often finding out that you're not following those best practices. You haven't got the preventative tools that you need, and there's also funding going on. There's companies that actually will fund a lawyer's firm to go ahead and help that lawyer get a nuclear verdict for a plaintiff. And it's just, it's new, but it hurts.
So no doubt it's a thing. We've seen in the States, there's back in 2006, if you remember that, we didn't have smartphones then. There was 4 cases awarded over $1 million. And in the previous decade, so 2010 to 2018, there was 299 cases. So obviously awarded over $1 million. So obviously the trend is here and real. What's the impact though that's having on insurance? The insurance market's got a couple things going on. And nuclear verdicts are a part of it. Do you mind explaining a little further on that?
Absolutely. The possibility of a nuclear verdict is something that an underwriter has to actually take into consideration when they're rating a policy, renewing a policy, or starting a new piece of business. It'll depend on what states you travel in. It will depend on what your risk exposure is. And it's not just about losses, dollars in, dollars out anymore. It's where are you going and what is the possibility that you could be hit with a nuclear verdict at any time. So it's increasing rates. It's rate consideration for sure. And, it's something that like is real, but is being, in my opinion, might be being used a little more loosely than I would like.
So we've got some opportunistic insurers of which, we talk about things we can control and things we can't control. That one we gripe about over a beer. But on things we can control, you talked about in your opening question, or the opening answer, was lawyers sniffing out and seeing people that aren't following best practices. So something you touch on a lot and look for is policies, procedures, documentation. Tell us about that, Lisa. What are you looking for?
Absolutely. Now my focus and my client's focus is prevention. How do we prevent a nuclear verdict? How do we not get into that situation? How do we make sure that we're defensible in a court of law? It's a first and foremost thought now. And what used to be a business where are we going to get our loads? How are we going to generate revenue? That's kind of taking a back seat to how do we protect ourselves? How do we not have these things happen? What are best practices? And I spend an awful lot of time with my clients going through all of that as far as compliance and paperwork, documentation. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. And there's no way you're going to tell a judge that you do something that isn't documented.
That's right. The first rule, right? If you can't show it, it didn't happen, right? If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Safety departments, I see. So that is definitely a theme I hear from people in your position as recommended as a best practice. The safety departments, though, become, documentation machines. So how, to your point, what a shame, because we're not talking about the fun stuff, which is growing the business or helping their clients out. We're talking about just trying to play defense here. So do you mind just diving a little deeper on how do I, if I'm a safety director, how do I maintain a true risk managed perspective and not just a professional documentator?
Exactly. I think it comes with repetition. It comes with being consistent. And I think that, and I know from my clients, I've got a few safety managers that it comes naturally to them. So it is, they find streamlining processes, they find online processes, especially during the pandemic. They use platforms that can help them, compile and make sure that everything is in a file. I mean, the old days, we'd have a checklist on the right side of the left side of a file, and then we'd have all the documentation, and then you check it off, and that way you're consistent, you haven't missed anything, and repetition will tell you if you've missed something or not. So the good safety departments are clockwork and consistent and best practice, and so it's not something that they panic about or have to catch up on. If you're audit ready every day, then it becomes a way of life at work. So you can have more time to enjoy, look what we did for this customer, look at how we got that load delivered, look at how many safe miles my guys have. Because those are the more enjoyable parts of the industry that you can miss or get mired if you're mired down with paperwork, for sure.
No doubt. Would much rather celebrate the driver who's been to the moon and back 3 times, without an incident than
Absolutely.
worry about all this documentation or, the dreaded deposition. So something that, we think about at Avatar Fleet is preventing the accident in the first place, right, with defensive driving. But unfortunately, it's not everyone is, you don't go a full year, right, without something. Unfortunately, you put a truck on the road, there's a risk involved.
Absolutely.
So when that happens, a claim comes up. Talk to us about how you, with an eye towards a nuclear verdict, how should a carrier approach that claim and play offense and really start being aggressive?
Again, consistency. Have your post-accident process in place. Follow it every time. I mean, every accident's different, but every process of procedure should be the same. This is the documentation you're gathering. This is the documentation that will be in your driver file because you're audit ready. So you're going to go and get the information that you need. Your maintenance files are audit ready. So all of your maintenance files will be there because that's what's asked for. They're going to look for 2 weeks of logs leading up to the event. They're going to look for a month of maintenance. They're going to look. So this is what our nuclear verdict lawyer will do is he'll look for a PM not being followed. So a preventative maintenance statement is every 3,000 kilometers. He'll look through that maintenance file to read odometer readings to make sure that is adhered to, because you have to do what you say and say what you do. So I have seen cases where, my driver wasn't really at fault. We were defending, but they didn't adhere to their maintenance statement. So we were found a certain percentage at fault because the truck wasn't maintained as we said it was. And then it hurt our credibility and everything else that we said. So post-accident, documentation, consistency, all of those things I would suggest will help you, or they won't insulate you totally, but they will help you toward lessening the verdict.
So similar but different than hiring and safety in that it's different. It's a different process. Similar in that repeatable, automate what you can. It really is a literal checklist. And the more we can automate this and digitize it, you won't have to be, I've seen people digging around the back of a truck trailer where they put all their old files, right? We can do better than that in 2021.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm very proud to say I do have fleets that are digitalizing all of their records and using platforms, and a claim happens and there's no more white knuckle panicking. It's like, okay, go here, go there, go get that. And you know what? The stress level is lower and you're more confident. We do, like you said, an accident is going to occur. An event will happen. It's how we react to the event or how we proactively try and prevent the event. Those are the most important for me.
Yep. Last piece here, topic, take us out. Lisa, you made a comment the other day of a winning verdict doesn't guarantee an award. Would you mind just expounding on that statement?
Right. I mean, everybody panics and we get very anxious when we hear nuclear verdict because it's going to be several $1 million. There have been cases, most recently, and there's a couple of them that were above $40 and $50 million that the verdict was awarded. The verdict was found to be for the plaintiff, but the money was not awarded because the judge on appeal can walk it back and say, you know what, this was an emotional jury. This was an emotional decision by the jury. The law doesn't stand by it. It wasn't enough to get that amount of money. So they have been either, never fully taken away, but they have been reduced. So I think it's important that we understand that not every verdict is an award.
Just a good point of control what you control. You can get in that scenario, you can still find your way out.
Mhm.
without necessarily seeing the end of your company. Not a fun day, but there is a way, it's not the end, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Lisa, appreciate your time. We're looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts, more of your best practices on Tuesday, March 23rd. It's going to be from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. So everyone mark your calendars, and we'll definitely have links to register made available as part of both emails and as a part of this little podcast in the show notes. So Lisa, I want to thank you again for the time, and we will see you and the rest of the audience here on Tuesday the 23rd.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Thanks, Lisa.